Hey, how's it going? Can you guys hear me? Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Awesome. Hey, thanks for hopping on. Let's maybe just wait 1 or 2 more minutes to see if anyone wants to kind of hop on last minute.
Stephen, did you have a lot of people click yes on your invite? Because I know on the SARE group, you got a lot of feedback.
Yeah, I mean, I got about maybe 14 yeses.
Oh, okay. Because I saw you had like over 100 comments that people were interested. So the rate seems,
Uh,
I mean, it's not your fault, but
I'm not
just
that.
shows
I'm not
how
that cool. I'm not that cool. Yeah. All right,
people
cool.
are
Let's just get
interested.
started, and I'm sure. All right, cool. Let's just get started here. Thank you, everyone, for joining. Um, obviously, everyone saw the post that I made on the SAR community. Had about 100 comments, but we have an intimate group here. Maybe just to kind of start off, do we just kind of want to go around and maybe introduce ourselves and what kind of our real estate portfolio looks like and what kind of our goals are? That can kind of help me kind of tailor my conversation a little bit. We just start with Claudia, I guess.
Sure, sure. So I work, my 9 to 5 is in real estate private equity. Um, we invest all across the United States, all across asset classes. Hopefully, I can, leverage that experience to kind of start my own fund and branch off on my own, and eventually kind of quit my 9 to 5. I have a small apartment complex, 8 units in Jacksonville at the moment, and then have some smaller properties like a duplex and such. So relatively small portfolio, and just hoping things kind of cool down. So at least I can buy something at good prices in the next couple of months.
Cool, awesome. How about is it Arthur? Fireflies, Arthur? Nope. How about is it Great Walls Chiang? GW Chiang?
Yes. Uh, yes. I stay in San Francisco. I've been buying houses over here. Recently, I invest into our stay in Austin, and also invest into mobile home park and apartment as syndication as well too. Yeah, I'm trying to network to learn more about different type of investment out there that's available. Yeah, that's it for me.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, it kind of seems like we're kind of in the same space. I mean, I think Claudia, were you from the Bay Area as well? I forget.
No, I'm based in New York.
Oh, okay, New York. Oh wow. Oh wow. That's dedication. It's 10 p.m.
Yeah.
Appreciate that. But yeah, pretty much the same. I'm from the Bay Area as well. I started investing in real estate about 5 years ago in 2017. But prior to that, as you all know, I'm a pharmacist. That's my daytime W-2 job. Was a pharmacist in 2013. I thought I made it. I came out with 250K in student debt and was making six figures. And for some reason, I thought that was the dream. But quickly realized that, especially in the Bay Area, you get a little humbled in terms of all the tech wages and whatnot. So it kind of got me thinking about like what else could I do. So that really got me thinking about real estate. And when I was growing up, my parents would always rent out a room in our house. So I would live in a 5 bedroom house, and then they would rent out like the downstairs room to some tenant for some extra income. So I didn't really understand that, but I just kind of saw it. So after I worked for a while, I basically was like, well, I need to find my own house. And I specifically targeted, if you're familiar, like the East Bay area. And why I chose the East Bay was because houses were under $1 million. And at the time, it
That's
was
rough.
just, yeah, it's just what's under $1 million. And, I grew up in San Jose, and houses were over 1 million. And if you kind of look at the path of progress, it goes from San Jose, Pleasanton was $1 million, Dublin was $1 million. So I literally looked at the city next to Dublin, which was Livermore, which was under $1 million. So I just said, hey, let me just check out this area. They just built like a brand new outlet there. They're going to extend the BART station there. So I just started looking at homes there. And I think literally I went to like five open houses and I just made like three offers and my third offer got accepted. I mean, that's how easy it was back then. So I got the house for about $800,000, and my intent was just to kind of live there because it was kind of closer to my job. So it was a primary residence. I down 10%. So, 80K in, and I basically own this asset. And, it's still relatively pretty young. So I just ended up renting out three other rooms to, kind of working professionals. We were near a kind of a laboratory, and it just attracted, a lot of post PhD students, and they just wanted a place to stay. So I ended up renting out like three of my bedrooms for 1,000 each, including utilities. So it's 3K a month, and
Oh, wow.
that basically just covered my mortgage. So my cost was about maybe 1,500 between property tax, insurance, HOA. So that's how I kind of got started. I literally downed. I literally paid off all my student loans. I literally had no money. I downed on the house, and I remember when I wired the down payment, I had like $2,000 in my bank account, and literally the broker was a relative, so he kind of gave me part of his commission to help cover some of my closing costs. So I was literally, I think I had like $2,000 in my bank account, and then I was waiting for this like, was it $6,000 check to come for me from commission, and then I was like desperately trying to rent out the rooms. So that's kind of how I got started, and it kind of taught me quite a bit. I mean, it's interesting living with your tenants, especially being a bit younger. But for me, it was kind of a great learning experience, and obviously, just like learning how to negotiate leases and dealing with tenant issues. Every time there's an issue of roommates, I basically have to deal with it, and I was basically doing that on top of my my 9 to 5 job. At the time, I just became a pharmacy director, so I thought, well, I can manage like 14 people at work. I can probably manage like three at home. Like there's literally like no difference. So that's what literally got me started. So I did that for about a year and a half, and then I actually got a job in San Francisco. So what I did was I couldn't commute from where I was, the East Bay to San Francisco. It was like an hour and a half each way. So from there, I literally got a job, and then I just started looking for houses again. And the job was in Daly City, which is like borderline between San Francisco and Burlingame, if you guys are familiar. And it's just the same process. Like literally, my apparently I had an aunt that I didn't know about that she lives in San Francisco. She's a realtor, and she just knew the area. So I just said, hey, let's just meet up and on the weekend and just show me a couple houses. So literally, when I went to San Francisco to check out houses, it humbled me so much. Like, as you guys know, San Francisco is very tenant friendly. So I remember seeing a house in the Mission District, and they literally had protected tenants in the house, and I didn't know what protected tenants were. But pretty much, when you buy the house, the tenant comes with the house. So can you literally imagine buying $1 million home that's a 5 bedroom house, and four of the bedrooms are already occupied with protected tenants. And then when you buy the house and you occupy it, you're gonna live with these four tenants. So that just confused me like crazy, for lack of a better word. Like literally, you're buying a house and you're buying roommates that come with it. Um, so that's what I kind of saw, and then like this house that literally. So we looked at like four or five houses, and honestly, I was really, I guess, turned off by the houses. The houses are a lot older in San Francisco. But we came across this one house, and literally, the MLS pictures were so terrible. Like they literally took pictures in the dark, bad angles, poor lighting. So, but I just said, hey, let's just go in. My aunt knew the area, so I went in the house, and the house was beautiful. It was like nicely renovated, new kitchen, new flooring, new carpet, new paint. It was really nice cosmetically, and I literally just walked in, and then I walked out and made an offer. Like literally, that's how fast I made an offer, and then they jumped and they accepted my offer from the day. So that house, it was kind of interesting. In San Francisco, Chiang might know, like it's kind of common to have it's like a makeshift duplex. So we have an upper unit, which was 3 bedroom, 2 bath, and then the lower basement unit was literally 2 bedroom, 1 bath. But it wasn't a legal duplex, but the basement unit had its own entrance, so you kind of had privacy. So I kind of did the same process. Like I literally lived in the master bedroom upstairs. I rented out the 2 bedrooms in the upstairs unit. And I rented out the entire downstairs unit to like four college kids because I was near SF State. So once again, my for that property, I got it for 1.1 million back then in 2009. I down 10%, and I think I had $1 million loan on it, but my monthly payment was probably around like maybe 7,000, and I was collecting probably about 5,500. So like once again, like it was kind of house hacking, right? This is what they teach on the Bigger Pockets podcast. And for me, I didn't think about it. It was just more of like, I just had to move for my job. I never thought like, and then I just didn't want to sell my other property. Kind of my goal was, or every regret I've heard from people in the Bay Area is I wish I never sold my property. So I took that with me and just said, well, I can afford this down payment on the house. So that's how I kind of started off. And then, most recently in 2022 during COVID, I relocated over to SoCal, where I'm currently based now. And it was the same process. Like literally, I got a job here. And then, in Orange County, it's expensive, but not Bay Area expensive. So it was the same model. Like, well, what's under $800,000? That was literally my goal again. So I was living like near Irvine, if you guys are familiar, for a bit. But Irvine was expensive, and then Mission Viejo was expensive. But then there's a city called Lake Forest right next to Mission Viejo, which was a little bit cheaper. So I kind of took that same model that I did in the Bay Area and did that for in Orange County. And this time, I honestly got lazier. Like I just picked any like literally real estate agent. It didn't really matter to me because I kind of knew what I wanted. And I would literally make offers on houses before I even saw them. Like if it just looked remotely, under $800,000 and looked decent, I just made offers, and then I would show up, and then it sounds more serious when I'm like, I already made an offer on the property. I'm just here to look at it in person. So that's kind of like one little trick I've learned for that. And after about maybe 3 months, I made about probably 30 offers in 3 months, and I finally got an offer accepted in Lake Forest. And it was the same situation as my San Francisco. Like literally, the pictures are so terrible. Like bad angles, poor lighting. Like there was like two photos, and I walked in there, same thing. Like they literally spent about 200K to renovate that property. So it was like brand new everything. So it was like the same process over again. I just literally, because I relocated, I just needed a house, so I bought a house near my job, and I kept the prior two houses that I had. So once I kind of did that, I just kind of thought like, this is not really scalable, to be honest. I mean, it's like I'm paying 800 to $1 million for a single family home. And, honestly, at best, I was getting like maybe 35 to 4,000 in rent. And that's just enough to pay for your break even, maybe slightly negative, right? California and New York, they're more appreciation markets, right? Like, it's you're gonna lose money or break even if you're lucky. And I'm self managing these properties, even to this day. If I had a property manager, they take 10% off, so you lose even more. So after that, I just started thinking, out of state, like, okay, like how can I get more cash flow? I was focused on cash flow, right? California is all appreciation, New York is all appreciation. So literally, I went on like a Bigger Pockets podcast forum, and I was just researching like markets that people are investing in, and a popular one where Claudia's investing is Jacksonville, Florida. That's very popular, and I just stumbled across Huntsville, Alabama. And the reason why I came across that was because my cousin is in aerospace, and he literally goes there like every quarter. And he just said that, yeah, like there's so many rocket scientists there. Literally, it's literally the rocket scientist capital. They have the highest per capita of PhDs. So I just literally just started like researching about it, and then I posted on the Bigger Pockets forums. It's just, hey, like anyone know about the Huntsville market? And a realtor actually reached out to me, saying that she basically had brand new builds, like new build construction, like they weren't even built yet, for around maybe 270K, and I can rent it out for 2,100. And then if you guys know the 1% rule in real estate, it's like it's almost 1%, right? So you're going to cash flow. So I kind of did the math, and I'm like, I would cash flow about $700 per property. And I just said, well, that's more than I'm making from my single family homes in California. I'm probably breaking even or slightly negative. On my property in Livermore, like honestly, I was losing about $500 a month in that property, um, for about 3 years. But the property went from 800K to 1.3 million in about 5 years. So I mean, I was losing $500 per month, but I mean, the appreciation made up for it, right? I mean, that's half a million in 5 years. So after I kind of did my single family home out of state, I actually joined a mentorship program. Um, Actually, my mentor actually interviewed me for my first apartment deal, but I joined a mentorship program. Peter Harris is his name, and believe it or not, it costs around 15 to 30K to join the mentorship program. And initially, I thought that was a little crazy. Like, I'll be honest, like, wow, 30 to 15 to 30K for like this mentorship program. But, I just said, hey, let me try it out, right? Worst case, I spent 30K, and that's expensive MBA. That's what I call it. It's expensive real life MBA. And I spent, 250K on pharmacy school and getting a master's in public health. So I just figured, well, hey, like I spent on education before. So I literally joined his mentorship. They teach you about, apartment complexes, mobile home parks, and self storage. That's what he specializes in, as well as creative finance. And, to be honest, like I went through his coursework. It was about maybe 10 to 20 modules. And by the way, I'm not being paid to advertise my coach at all. But it's a bunch of modules. But like what I kind of liked about it was I was basically just following a system. Like he kind of had a system ready, like on how to market the deal, how to analyze the deal, and how to like follow up with your leads. So that's what I kind of really liked. I mean, honestly, like if you listen to enough podcasts, like what he taught me, it's already out there. But it was just kind of nice having that system that he followed. And then when you kind of spend $15,000 to $30,000 on a course, you're kind of invested to follow the system. When you get something for free, you don't really like you don't feel obligated to take action. But if you invested like 15 to 30,000, of course you're gonna like hold yourself committed because you want to see a return on your investment. So literally, kind of at a high level, if you guys don't know the difference between single family or 1 to 4 units versus 5+ units, the example I like to give is like, let's just say you have two single family homes right next to each other. One rents for 5,000 and one rents for 10,000. When you go to sell, they're worth exactly the same. Like it's based on the sales comparable. But let's just say I have a 20-unit apartment complex that makes 5,000 a month, and another 20-unit that makes 10,000 a month. Based on the commercial lending, the one that's 10,000 in rent, that one's worth double the one that is getting 5,000 in rent. So once I kind of learned that concept, it kind of blew my mind a little bit because I always thought real estate was cash flow or appreciation, but literally with apartment complexes, the more cash flow you have, the more it forces the appreciation to go up. So after that, I just said it makes like zero sense for me to like do single family homes like moving forward. Um, so what I did was I started just researching markets and like I own about two apartment complexes in Oklahoma City and a mobile home park in Alabama currently. And people ask me why. Like, why did I choose those markets? And I think literally I chose it because it was just, well, number one, they're landlord friendly. California, New York, not the most landlord friendly states, are more tenant friendly. And number two, it's just cheap property or cheap property taxes. So just those kind of two factors. And number three is it's just a more, affordable housing, more workforce housing. And number four, most importantly, I kind of had connections of property managers in those markets. So for me, because I'm not physically there, I'm based in California. So I just kind of actually my mentor gave me his property manager in Oklahoma City, and they basically kind of I talked to them. They kind of showed me what's the good pockets, where are the bad pockets. So after that, I literally started a direct mailing campaign. So what I did was I sent about 300 letters a month for about 6 months. So um, it, so I kind of did that, and when you kind of send out letters, typically you send out about 300, and you get about 3% response rate. So if I send 300, I get about 10 people that call me, and then when people call you, it's like three of them are like, "Hey, you're from California, you can overpay for my property, right? Like you're really rich, you're from California, throw me like a pie in the sky offer, and maybe I'll take it." So those type of um, I guess sellers, they're not motivated. They just kind of want, maximum returns on their money. And then you have other kind of people who, maybe like what's their situation, right? Maybe they just got a divorce and they need to liquidate their asset. Maybe they had a death in the family and the kids inherited the property and they want nothing to do with the property. Maybe it's they had a bad property manager. The property manager was stealing from them. Maybe they didn't manage it very well and they just want to get rid of it. Maybe the seller wanted to retire. I mean, there's many different reasons why, right? There's so many reasons why people want to sell. And then, out of those are kind of a little more serious, right? So, like, what I kind of learned was you're buying situations, you're not buying properties. And once you kind of know that, it kind of makes it a little bit easier in terms of buying real estate. So basically, after about 6 months of sending out letters, this one guy, he called me. He was an attorney, actually. So he owned a law practice in Oklahoma City, and he was self-managing this like 26 unit by himself. He literally was a property manager. He did his own pest control. He did his own maintenance. He used one unit as his office for his law firm. So he was your typical mom and pop operator, right? Like I want to do everything myself. And there's nothing wrong with that. That's what my parents were kind of telling me to do, but it's not scalable, as I said. So literally, he called me or he shot me an email. He actually didn't want to talk to me over the phone at all because he's a lawyer. He wanted everything written and documented. And he literally just like said, "Hey, I'm looking to sell. my 26 unit, like, give me an offer. And then half the time, you're kind of like, they throw the ball back in your court, right? It's negotiations. They want you to make an offer. So I just said, well, if in order for me to make an offer, I need some information. So you always need, number one, the rent roll, and number two, you need it's called a T12, which is essentially a profit and loss statement for the past 12 months. So those are the two documents you'll need to analyze the deal and to give to the lenders. And but a lot of these mom and pop operators, they don't have that stuff. They literally write things on a piece of paper, or they take cash, and they don't have good records, because maybe they're lying on their tax records or whatnot. So, after some back and forth, luckily he had some good, numbers that he gave me. Like, he pulled it off. He didn't give me his tax return, but he kind of pulled the numbers off his tax return. But as you guys may or may not know, you can kind of make up those numbers, right? Like, to be honest, there's no way to prove it in commercial real estate. There's no, like, if someone's lies to you in commercial real estate, you can't go after them and sue them. But in, like, single family residential, they have, like, protection in place. So, like, if someone lied to you about something in a single family home, you can kind of go back after them in the contract. But in commercial, they deem that you're a more sophisticated investor, so you should know your due diligence and be more intelligent in making your decisions. So yeah. So once you kind of go through all that, I went through the property. It was actually pretty good. I analyzed the units. The rents are about $300 under market. Like, he was renting out for about 400 to 450 a month per unit, including electricity and utilities. And that just blew my mind, because my rent in California is about 2,500, and I know in the Bay Area or San Francisco it's like $4,000. Literally, that's, you can rent 10 units out in Oklahoma City for $4,000. But I was analyzing the market rents, and the market was around $700. So I kind of knew that, like, wow, I can bump the rents up by $300 with some renovations. So you guys may have heard about the burst strategy, but basically I was kind of doing the burst strategy on my 26 unit on a larger scale. So basically, I bought the units. I renovated, probably, I'm going to renovate about half the units. It's going to cost me about $8,000 per unit to renovate. And what 8,000 gives me is basically a brand new kitchen, brand new paint, luxury vinyl plank flooring, ripping out the bathtub and putting in a bath kit, and getting a new bathroom vanity. So pretty much your typical cookie cutter apartment complex renovation. And then by putting in $8,000, I can bump up the rent by $300. So if you kind of do the math of how apartments are valued, if you raise the rents by $300, you times that by 26, because there's 26 units. You times that by 12 months in a year, and then you divide that by the cap rate. So in Oklahoma City, it's an 8 cap. So I can't do the math off the top of my head, but if you kind of add that all up, I think it kind of increases the value by at least about $600 to $800,000 in value add. So can you imagine putting in $8,000 per unit, renovating 26 units, raising the rent by $300, and then after you stabilize the apartment complex, you do a cash out refi, pull out all your initial down payment, and then all the renovation funds, plus like a little extra. So that's just kind of like the burst strategy on steroids, is what I call it, with apartment complexes. So once I kind of learned that strategy, I was just like, this is like, it was insane to me. Like, essentially, one apartment complex can, like, change. It's like one apartment complex that's stabilized is good enough to kind of retire you from, like, your W-2. Like, if you make six figures, if you give yourself enough time for that. So yeah, that's just kind of some background on that. And the funny part was, for that 26 unit, I literally, so they told me to offer, and I literally just went on the tax assessor's website. It's public information, right? You just can Google the address and type county at the end, and then you just search, click tax assessor, and then you type in the address, and it'll tell you the tax assessed price. And it was, I think, $520K for a 26 unit in Oklahoma City. And literally, if you're in California or New York, that's a condo. It's not even a condo. I can probably get like a shack under a bridge in San Francisco for like $500,000. So I just made that offer, and I was expecting him to say, well, what made you come up with that price? And then I would just say, well, that's what the tax record says. It's public information, right? I was expecting him to say no, but he ended up saying yes. I think he was, like I said, he was really motivated and wanted to retire, and that was the case. So once I took over the property, I actually got it appraised. The bank appraised it at 750K. So I literally made about 250K in equity day one. So when people kind of knock on me about kind of signing for that mentorship, thanks to that mentorship, it got me to take action. It got me to follow a system, and it kind of held me accountable because I knew that I paid, about $30,000 to join this mentorship program, and just doing that made me follow the system to a T. I didn't deviate whatsoever, and it ended up landing me my first 26 unit and made me about 250K equity day one. And what's kind of crazy is I started renovating the property, and I literally just got cold called, and a guy wanted to offer me $1.3 million. And I just started renovating about like one unit, and I replaced the roof. So I mean, I bought it for $500,000. I got offered 1.3. So that's $800,000 in like profit, like literally in less than a year. So even if you want to flip the apartment complex, you can make that much money that rapidly. But I'm pretty steadfast on buy and hold. I mean, that's what I think the apartment's going to be valued at once I'm done renovating it. But then just do a cash out refi, pull out my money plus some, and then go buy another one. So that's kind of that. And then not too long after I bought my 26 unit, I was literally looking on LoopNet, and kind of my impression of Loop. So LoopNet has all the commercial. It's like the Zillow of commercial real estate, or like the Redfin of commercial real estate. And my impression of LoopNet was literally there's no good deals on LoopNet. Like every deal there, they've been passed through multiple people. No one wants the deal. They're either overpriced, the owner isn't motivated, or literally there's something wrong with it. That was literally my impression, and I just was like looking through Alabama and Oklahoma because those are the two markets I'm investing in. I literally came across this like mobile home park for like 1.1 million, and it was a 200 lot mobile home park. So I kind of once again got me thinking. I'm like, $1.1 million, 200 lot mobile home park, that's how much my San Francisco house cost, single family home cost. So that kind of got me interested. I opened the ad, and then it literally said in the comment like 100K down, seller financing 1 million. And I was just like, oh, okay, well, like seller financing is nice, right? You don't have to involve a bank. Banks make it very difficult to close on deals, and less due diligence and all that. So I just said, all right, that sounds interesting. So I actually called the broker, and it turns out that the broker he manages about 70 parks currently, mobile home parks, and the owner that has it, it's a huge distressed property, and the owners that had it, they just weren't sophisticated enough to implement the value add strategy. So basically, it's 200 lots. There are about 35 occupied homes. So there's about 170 vacant lots, and out of the 35, maybe half were paying. So literally half the tenants were paying rent, and they had about maybe 50 homes that either need to be torn down or renovated. So it's a huge project. I'll probably kind of talk more about it in a later, meet up if people are interested in mobile homes. But like, kind of at a high level, I'm probably putting in about. It probably needs about $600,000 worth of capex. If the park is full, it's going to be worth around maybe 7-8 million. But it's going to take about 6 to 7 years to get there. And I kind of did analysis. Like my worst case scenario in this deal is, let's just say if I were to put in 600,000 in capex and I were to sell it, I'd probably lose about 300K. That's my worst case scenario. But my best case scenario is, as I said, it could be worth about 6 to 7 million. And in that case, you would have made about $6 to 7 million in equity over like, what is it, 5-6 years. So it's about $1 million a year in terms of equity. So I thought the risk was worth taking on that. And then most recently in I think May of this year, I closed on a 20 unit in Oklahoma. It was funny. I sent about 1,800 letters about the same time I got my 26 unit. It was the same letter batch of 1,800. I sent that out, and this guy, he literally mailed back me a postcard in response to my letter. And he just said, "Hey, I'm interested in selling just give me a call. And then he literally wrote his number, and I called him, and he was I think, a loan officer in New York, I believe. I think he lives in New Jersey, but he worked in New York, and he owned this small 20 unit in Enid, Oklahoma, which is a more kind of like a rural town. It's 50K population, and he just called and just said, "Hey, like I have this 20 unit, I just want to get rid of it and allocate the money towards another business that I own." So I just started, and he just said, "I just want the tax assessed price." So kind of learning what I did from the 26 unit. I know if you offer a tax assessed price, typically it's undervalued, right? What it's going to price for is going to be higher. So I kind of knew, okay, well, he wants tax assessed price. If I offer on it, I'm going to make money equity day one. Um, so that's exactly what I did. I basically offered him the tax assessed price of about 415,000, 20 unit. Once again, it's dirt cheap compared to California. But for this deal, traditional lenders actually wouldn't want to lend on it. I guess they didn't like the cash flow. The property had a burned out unit. So I think the owner was so cheap that I think literally one unit was burned down, and he didn't want to spend the money to like renovate it, fix it up, and he didn't have good enough insurance. Because if you buy good insurance, if the unit burns down, usually the insurance will kick in, and you'll get a brand new unit, unless you bought cheap insurance. If you bought cheap insurance, then you're just going to leave it burned down. So it's good and bad. I mean, good in the sense of like there's deferred maintenance. So, obviously you can implement the value add strategy, but it's bad in the sense of like, well, if he's not doing that, what else is he not taking care of? So basically I got a property inspection on that. Um, did pretty well. He had a brand new roof installed about three years ago. So I thought that was sufficient enough. And just when there's no other major red flags, I was able to find a hard money lender that was willing to basically lend me on the home purchase plus about $100,000 worth of renovation, and it's interest only at 9%. At the time, I thought 9% was quite a bit, but interest rates now for single family homes are like close to 6%. So I just said, well, I'm renovating this apartment complex, and half the units are occupied. So even while I'm renovating, I'm still collecting money every month, right? Versus if you're renovating a single family home, like you're getting $0 and you're paying interest until you're done with renovations and until it's complete and rented out. So that's what I kind of like about apartments as well, is like, if you're not getting money from 10 units, but the other 10 units are paying for you, like you're still kind of collecting cash flow day one. So, my mortgage is about maybe 1,300, and I'm collecting about 4,000, and only half the units are occupied. So I kind of view it as a break even, right? Between all the insurance, the property tax, property management, all the utilities, everything, I'm probably breaking even. With half the units occupied, I'm renovating the other half. So kind of sorry for rambling, but that's kind of been my journey. I scaled quite significantly in the past, since essentially middle of 2020, so about a year now. I've kind of pumped the brakes a little bit. I've scaled a little too fast. Like once you kind of buy one deal, it kind of snowballs. Like once people know that like you close on apartment complexes, literally like brokers are just cold calling me saying, "Hey, we saw that you closed on this apartment complex. Like we're selling one that's like 3 miles away from yours. Like, do you want to like make an offer?" And once you kind of have that track record of closing and having that credibility, it just gets easier and easier, and it kind of compounds. Um, so it just was kind of very, very humbling for myself. So, yep. So, sorry for kind of that rambling. Kind of just want to open it up for anyone that had any questions about anything regarding any of my deals, or maybe if you guys want more clarification on something, I'll just kind of leave it open to everybody.
Hey, Steven. It's Z here. Dude, that's an awesome story. Thank you so much for taking the time to share that with us. I was wondering, did you partner up with anybody or did you tackle it yourself? I might have missed that in the beginning. I came in a little bit later, but I was just wondering if it was a JV.
Yeah. So I actually own all these units myself. Um, and what kind of helped me kind of scale was that, I purchased a single family home in California. So I'm based here in California, and literally in 5 years, a lot of my properties appreciated by about 400 to half $500,000 each. And when you own like three of those properties, it's about $1.5 million in equity. So basically, I kind of I did cash out refis, or I did HELOCs on my properties, and basically just took the equity to buy my kind of commercial assets. So that's how I kind of scaled. I'm long term buy and hold. So literally, I never want to sell, because to me it's a lot of work to literally get one of these deals and to renovate it. In my eyes, like, why would you kill a golden goose? Like, if you spent all this time creating a golden goose, like, why would you kill it? It is tempting. I did get offered, like I said, $1.3 million for my 26 unit. I would have made $800,000 in literally less than a year, but I'm so steadfast to buy and hold that, like, I just said no. I do not want to sell it. Instead, I want to cash out, refi this property, pull all my money, still keep it, and then go buy another one. So that's just kind of how I am. And the problem is, when you kind of JV or you syndicate, you lose a lot of that control, right? Like, if I were to syndicate a deal, I own, like, typical syndication is like, let's just call it, I'm the general partner. I own 40%. The investors own 60%. The investors put in 90% of the capital. I put in 10%. But then at the end of the day, like, I have to report to the investors. Like, if they want me to sell by year 5, I'm forced to sell. And another note is, a lot of syndicators, if you think about it, they're incentivized to buy and sell, because they get a 1% acquisition disposition fee, a 1% asset management fee. So they're kind of incentivized to sell a little bit. So it's something that I know I have to go into, because eventually I'm gonna run out. As I mentioned, I ran on my own money already. So eventually I have to just suck it up and then JV or syndicate. But as of right now, I'm just basically doing the deals myself, and I was able to scale. And I have seen people who have JV'd and syndicate, and like another one of my other students in my group, she went from 0 to 1,000 units in like a year, and she syndicated it. But if you kind of do the math right, she owns, like, let's just say, like, 10% of 1,000 units. That's about 100 units, right? In my eyes, I'd rather just own 100 units myself. But that might be my limiting belief. Hope that answers your question, Z.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you. It's always good to hear. I recently learned about Jake and Gino, and their philosophy is to buy right, manage right, and I forgot what the third pillar is, but I've been looking into syndications for, I want to say, the past year, and it's nice getting the other perspective of just owning it and holding it long term. So, yeah, that definitely answered the question. Thank you.
Yeah, yeah. You probably listened to the Bigger Pockets podcast. They were on an episode recently. I listened to that one as well, and they're definitely kind of more lifestyle, investors. And even they were like, yeah, we sold our syndication deal because we lost the control. And
Two out of three.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And it's kind of weird, because, like, if I just share my deal that I've done, like, it's easy for me to raise money, right? I'm pretty sure if I told people, hey, I made $800,000 on my first apartment complex in less than a year, I don't think I'll have a difficult time getting investors to go with me, right? But for me, it's kind of weird. Like, it might be the pharmacist side of me, or the healthcare side of me, is like, I kind of want to prove it first, my concept first, before I raise money, because I don't want to lose other people's money. Like, if I lost $500,000 of my own money, it's gonna suck, but I can at least sleep at night knowing that, okay, whatever. Instead of retiring at like 50, maybe I'm retiring at 60, but that's most people's retirement, right? But if I lost, like, let's just say my friends and families, like, half of their $1 million, I would feel like I wouldn't be able to sleep at night, like, doing that. So I kind of feel like I want to prove the concept out first. And, like, once you have your system in place, it's so easy. Like, I can literally buy another two to 500 more units in Oklahoma City with my property manager, and I know exactly, like, what a good price is, how to buy it right, and, like, manage it. Like, I don't even have to go there. Like, I literally can just sight unseen buy apartment complexes there and scale that fast once I have my system there. And that's why I kind of tell my property manager that, like, hey, like, I'm a small fish, right? I only own 26 units. You're probably managing people more, but know that I'm trying to scale. So That's just kind of been my mindset. So right now it doesn't make sense, but maybe if I leave my W-2 and I have more free time, I may syndicate. But as of right now, it just doesn't make sense for me. Unless someone gives me like a couple $1 million, and maybe I might change my stance. But right now it's kind of that. Any kind of other questions from anybody?
Did you go straight to the broker, the seller's broker, on some of these deals?
Oh, yeah, great question. So actually, because I do direct mail, so I send letters directly to the owners. So I hate working with brokers. Like, I'm sorry if there's a broker on the call, but I hate working with brokers because it's like playing telephone, right? If I tell the broker something and then they tell the other broker something and that broker tells the owner something, it's like playing telephone. The message gets construed and it's hard to build trust. So for me, I actually work directly with the owner, and they kind of like it because a lot of these mom and pop have the mentalities, oh, I'm too cheap to pay 3%
Yeah.
commission for this broker. But yeah, in my cases, if they used a broker, they would have made more money than what I paid, right? So, if they used a broker, they would have made money, but because they had that mentality of like, well, I want to save some money and I want to work directly with somebody, I can talk directly to the owner and build that trust. And once they kind of trust that, you can kind of close and you just want to help them. Because the way I view it is like, I'm not buying them. It's the healthcare background in me as well. I'm trying to help. Like I'm used to taking care of patients in the hospitals, right? But here it's like people have a problem, right? Like I'm just trying to solve a problem for these owners. The 26 unit he wanted to retire, the 20 unit he wanted to sell it. It wasn't doing well, and he wanted to take that for his other business. So for me, I'm not like I just happen to be buying the asset, but I'm just solving a problem and trying to create a win-win situation. So I work directly with the owner. You're probably gonna think, well, how'd you do all the contracts? Like literally just Google, like in Oklahoma. I just Google Oklahoma real estate forms, and they have a generic, like statewide form. And even if you don't know, you can ask the title company, like, hey, like what forms do you guys use in Oklahoma? Because usually when you submit offers in commercial real estate, you do an LOI, letter of intent, and that's just some generic Google Doc or Word document. And then from there, they'll give you templates. So I didn't really see the need for a broker, and all the deals that brokers bought to me, to be honest, like if a broker brought me a deal, they're bringing it to like 30 to 50 other investors, and it just creates this huge bidding war. And to be honest, by the end, it's like make an offer, best and final, best and final, best and final. It happens like 3 to 5 times, and like you end up paying so much that it doesn't even cash flow anymore. It doesn't even make sense to purchase it. So I try to go direct to a seller if possible. So that's why I do a direct mailing campaign. So that's a great question. So that's my preferred method. Um, but I've seen people be successful with brokers as well if you built that relationship.
Within regards to the financing for those, considering it's you went direct to sellers, or working directly with the sellers. So did you do like a cash out refi HELOC on your other properties? Pull it out to like how did you what's the word? I guess how did you with like how did you structure the deal to make sure it's like a win-win situation for both? I mean, I know you mentioned you just looked at assess and be like, oh, okay, yes, but like for myself, like I've looked at some, and of course there's still a lot of sellers that are holding off on this big high. Like, nope, my property is gonna, this much is like, no, it doesn't.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's a good question, and I had the same struggle, right? So I mean, like I said, I sent about 1,800 letters, and I closed on two, right? So if you look at my percentage, it's not so
Mhm.
great. But there's always that seller who wants that. Like I had a guy who wants like $80,000 per unit, and the sales comps is 50K per unit. And that's like 30K more per unit, and so what I typically do is I'll engage lenders, right? So for a lot of times I don't want to be the bad guy. I make the lender the bad guy, right? Because I'm on your side, right? I'm on the seller side. I'm trying to help solve this problem with you. So
Right.
typically when I engage owners, I ask for a rent roll and a profit and loss statement for the past 12 months. and then I'll actually shoot that over to I work with mortgage brokers, multiple mortgage brokers, and you pay them a little bit of commission, but if they find the right lender, it kind of saves you, right? So I sent it to mortgage brokers, and I actually worked with Bank of the West on this deal, for my 26 unit, and literally I just ran it by them, and they'll underwrite it, and they'll just say, hey, this looks like a good deal, we can finance this at 25% down, right? So what I did was, so I did 25% down. So you can kind of do the math. Down payment was roughly around 120K, let's just call it. And what I did was, during due diligence, which I didn't mention, was I did a full property inspection of all 26 units. So what I learned is, you want to inspect every unit. If you have a 100-unit apartment complex, you want to go in every
Mhm.
single unit. Like, you pay for that. And it's expensive, right? It cost me, like, I think $7,000 to inspect all 26 units. But what I did was, during the inspection, I had a general contractor also there, and he would give me prices for everything. Like, hey, need a new roof, it's $30,000. These water heaters need to be replaced. This electrical panel needs to be replaced. Like, he just gave me a laundry list of things, and I literally gathered that laundry list. It ended up being $120,000, and I came up to the seller and just, hey, like, I'm gonna ask for 120K in seller repair credit, right? And
Mm.
then, most people are looking at you like you're crazy, right? And my mentality is, it doesn't hurt to ask. So I just said,
Right.
like, most are gonna say as is, right? That's what I thought he's gonna say. You're buying it as is, and even if he said as is, I would have closed on the deal, right? But he just said that, hey, I'm selling it as is, but if you lower that amount, then maybe I will give you some repair credit. And what I did was, it scared the seller, right? Because now he knows, oh shoot, if I hang on to this 26 unit, I'm gonna have to cover 120K of expenses. It
Mm.
puts a number in their mind. So I came back and said, hey, I talked to my property manager, and maybe we think these items need immediate attention and repair. And I gave him proof, right? I would send him my inspection reports. I sent him my bids. I was fully transparent. I didn't make anything up. And I just said, give me $60,000. I cut it in half. And he literally signed it, right? So
Mm.
what's nice about seller repair credit is it cuts your down payment. So I said my down payment is 120K, right? But I got 60K in repair credit, so my down payment was only 60K. So, I kind of had that from a cash out refi I did from one of my other single family homes. So, that's what I did. And in terms of the renovation, it's about $200,000 to renovate. And I just pulled a line of credit, HELOC, on one of my investment properties. Back when they allowed it, they don't allow it as anymore, unfortunately, on
Right.
investment properties. But I was able to lock it in, um, during that time. And that allowed me to fund it. And I'm not sure, like, you can also do lines of credits, on your stock portfolio if you have it through Charles Schwab. It's called a pledged asset line of credit. So let's just say you had $100,000 of stocks. You can borrow up to 70%, so 70K, and the interest rate's only 3%. That's really cheap. Like, 3% is like nothing. So there's other ways to get lines of credits to close on these deals. So for me, I'm definitely trying to maximize, all my lines of credits, between my personal line of credit, my home equity line of credit, and then my stock based backed lines of credits. Yeah.
Gotcha.
Hey,
Thank you for the information.
Yeah. Any other questions? We got about 5 minutes before we get kicked off.
yes, Stephen, this great was, yeah, for your mobile home park that has like 200 pet, right? I mean, how do you manage them with so many pet, and how are you to do the repair and find people to rent it from you?
Yeah, good question. I sorry, this is a long explanation. I think I might do the next week might be on mobile homes specifically if there's an interest. I just wanted to start on apartments because it's more, people like apartments, the shiny object. But yeah, for the mobile home, so I have an on-site manager there. So he actually lives in the park. And then on top of that, I have an off-site manager. So it's tri-layered. So there's the on-site manager who's doing the day-to-day. And then I have an off-site manager. And so she manages about 10 parks. So the company is a property management company. So she manages about 10 parks in that region of Alabama. And then I basically just manage the offsite manager who manages the on-site person. So typically in mobile homes, in the arena, your on-site manager is typically a handyman. So my on-site manager, his background, he's an electrician and a plumber, and he used to run a construction company, but he closed it and then just wanted to, work for the mobile home park. So that's your typical clientele or your on-site manager. So, like I said, I've been renovating about 2 mobile homes per month. So I have a team of 5 guys out there that I'm paying on an hourly basis, and then my on-site manager basically manages all 5 of them. And so yeah, that's kind of how I'm doing it. So, like I said, I have a kind of a director background, so I'm used to kind of like delegating and trusting people. You read the book Who Not How. So it's just a matter of validating, who the right who's are, and then so that's kind of how I started managing it. And to be honest, it's pretty well. That one's my most active project. It's the most costly project that I have, and what I'm kind of focused on is the big vision. So I'm not sure how familiar you are, but yeah, I'm trying to get applied with 21st Mortgage to basically bring in brand new homes there to either sell or rent out. And what's crazy about mobile home parks is you can literally bring in a mobile home for about $45,000, and then you can rent those out for about $800 if you want to rent. Or if you sold the home, you can get lot rent for about $300 in my market. So what's kind of crazy is you can basically bring in a home of $0 down and either sell it and make $300 a lot rent a month, or you can rent it out. And if you do the math, I mean, what, 450K, and you rent it out for 800, that's like well over the 1% rule. So that's kind of how can I manage it. Does that kind of answer your question?
Yeah. So will you be owning all the mobile home, or will you be um, have the owner own their mobile home, and then you just collect the monthly fee for the land?
So right now, basically it's park owned homes, so I own the homes. I know that's not favorable in all the podcasts I listen to. You want the tenants to own the homes, but in this market, you either have to do park owned homes or do rent to own. But it's definitely easy to rent out the homes. But what I want to do, because I have to infill 170 by nature of it, I need to sell homes. And I did put an ad out, and I had a very high demand to buy homes. So I am going to pivot a little bit and probably do a hybrid model. Like my vision for this park is 100 park owned homes, maybe, and 100 tenant owned homes, or something like that, just depending on the market. Obviously banks value park tenant owned homes more versus park owned homes, but I do know a few lenders that value the park owned homes a little bit.
I see. That's good to know. Thank
Yeah.
you.
So I have a couple lenders that I work with, and later down the road, there's more interest. I might bring on my property manager for an interview on one of these weekly calls. Um, I see Claudia had a question. I'm going to try to answer in a minute, but it might cut out real quick. But I can definitely discuss it next week. But basically, my mailers, I outsourced it to a company called Yellow Letters Complete. And it cost me about $1.50 a letter. So I did about 300 letters a month. So it cost me about $450 a month to execute the mailers. And I can kind of go into more detail on how I structured my letters to get the best response rates. But at the end of the day, I kind of said it earlier, it's about a 3% response rate. So if you kind of know that, you kind of do the math, right? So if I send out 300 letters, I got about 10 responses. And you just have to consistently do it. I mean, it sucks. It's terrible. It sucks to bleed, but if you keep on doing it, it compounds.
Do they also give you like the data, or you have to give them the data?
Oh, that's so I gave them like I'll pull the data from I use PropStream to pull all the data, and then I have a letter template to do that. So I can go into more details. I actually canceled my PropStream because I'm not doing mailers right now.